The uniform. The security guard pointed at the old man and said 3 words. Not you, sir. The veteran stood still, his hand was halfway to his wallet. The line behind him went quiet. He did not argue, he just stepped aside. The guard waved the next person through without a second glance. It was a military museum, Memorial Day weekend, families everywhere, children holding flags. The old man wore a green jacket with a faded name tape. No medals, no hat. His boots were scuffed but clean, his posture was straight, but his face looked tired, like he had been tired for years. The guard was young, maybe 25. He wore a crisp uniform with a badge and a radio. He looked at the old man like he was confused, like the old man did not belong. Sir, this entrance is for active duty and veterans with proper identification. The old man reached into his jacket slowly. He pulled out a military ID card. It was laminated, worn at the edges. The guard took it, studied it, then handed it back. This expired 2 years ago. The old man nodded. He did not explain, he just turned and walked toward the general admission line. It was longer, much longer. He stood at the back and waited. A woman in front of him whispered to her husband, "Why do they even try?" She did not say it quietly enough. The old man looked down at his hands. They were scarred, one finger bent at an odd angle. His knuckles were thick. He rubbed his thumb across his palm like he was feeling something that was not there anymore. Inside the museum, the air smelled like floor wax and old wood. There were glass cases filled with uniforms, rifles, helmets, photographs of men who never came home. The old man walked slowly through each room. He stopped in front of a display about desert operations. His breathing changed, just slightly. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he moved on. A group of college students walked past him. One of them bumped his shoulder. No apology. The old man did not react, he just kept walking. He stopped at a wall covered in unit patches. His eyes scanned the rows, then he found one, a black shield with a red sword. He stared at it for a long time. His jaw tightened, a muscle in his neck twitched, but he did not touch the glass. A voice came from behind him. "You served." The old man turned. It was a younger veteran, maybe 40. He wore a baseball cap with his unit logo. His arm was in a sling. "Yes," the old man said. "Which branch?" "Army." "What unit?" The old man paused, then he said it quietly, "Special Operations." The younger man nodded. He looked at the old man's jacket again. There were no patches, no insignia, just the name tape. It said Garrett. "You don't wear your stuff?" the younger man asked. Garrett shook his head. "Don't need to." The younger man smiled a little. "Yeah, I get that." He looked at the wall. "My dad was the same way, he never talked about it either." Garrett nodded once. The younger man walked away. Garrett stayed where he was. Behind him, a tour guide was speaking to a group of high school students. She was explaining the significance of certain missions, certain units. She mentioned a raid in 2003. Garrett's shoulders stiffened. He turned and walked to the next room. This one was quieter, it had fewer people. The displays here were older: Vietnam, Korea, World War II. Garrett stopped in front of a photograph. It showed a group of soldiers standing in a jungle, mud on their faces, exhaustion in their eyes. He looked at it for a long time. His lips moved slightly, like he was counting. Then he moved to another photograph. This one was different. It showed a man standing alone, a rifle across his chest. His face was blurred. Below the photo, a plaque read, "Unidentified Operator, Classified Mission, 1991. Garrett stared at it. His hand came up slowly. His fingers hovered an inch from the glass. He did not touch it, but he did not look away either. "Can I help you?" It was a museum staff member, a woman in her 50s. She had kind eyes. She smiled at Garrett. "No," he said, "just looking." "That's one of our more mysterious pieces," she said. "We don't know who he is. The photo was declassified only 10 years ago. We've had a few veterans come through and say they might know him, but no one's confirmed it." Garrett nodded. He did not say anything. The woman looked at him more closely. "Are you all right, sir?" "Yes." She paused. "Would you like to sit down? There's a bench right over there." "I'm fine." She nodded and walked away. Garrett stayed in front of the photograph. Minutes passed. People came and went. No one paid attention to him. Then a man in uniform entered the room. He was older, maybe 60. His uniform had ribbons, lots of them, a colonel's insignia on his shoulder. He walked with purpose, but when he saw Garrett, he stopped. He stared at the old man. His eyes moved from Garrett's face to the name tape on his jacket, then to the photograph on the wall, then back to Garrett. The colonel stepped closer, slowly. "Excuse me," he said. Garrett turned. The colonel's voice was careful, respectful. "Are you, Garrett?" The old man did not answer right away. His eyes met the colonel's. There was no fear in them, no pride, just quiet acknowledgement. "Yes." The colonel's face changed. His mouth opened slightly. He took another step forward, then he stopped. He looked around the room. No one was watching. He lowered his voice. "Garrett from 5th Group." The old man's jaw tightened. He nodded once. The colonel's eyes widened. He looked at the photograph on the wall, then back at Garrett. His hand came up slowly. He extended it. "Sir," he said quietly, "it's an honor." Garrett shook his hand, briefly, firmly, then he let go. The colonel looked like he wanted to say more, but he did not. He just stood there. Finally, he spoke again. "I was briefed on some of your work years ago when I was a captain." He paused. "I didn't know you were still around." Garrett did not respond. The colonel glanced at the photograph again. "Is that?" Garrett looked at the photo. His expression did not change. "A long time ago." The colonel nodded. He seemed to understand that this was not a conversation Garrett wanted to have. Not here, not now, maybe not ever. "Does anyone here know?" the colonel asked. Garrett shook his head. The colonel looked troubled. "Sir, you shouldn't have been turned away at the door, that guard." "It doesn't matter," Garrett said. "It does." Garrett looked at him. His eyes were calm, steady. "I'm here now." The colonel hesitated, then he nodded. "Yes, sir." They stood in silence for a moment. The colonel looked like he was remembering something. His eyes were distant. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "I lost men in that region," he said. "If it wasn't for operations like yours, a lot more would have died." Garrett's face did not change, but something shifted in his eyes, something small. A flicker of pain, or maybe just memory. "They did their job," Garrett said. "You did yours." The colonel nodded. He looked at Garrett one more time, then he stepped back. He brought his hand up to his forehead, and he saluted. Garrett did not return it. He just looked at the colonel, then he gave a small nod. The colonel lowered his hand. He turned and walked out of the room. Garrett stood alone again. He looked back at the photograph, the blurred face, the rifle, the emptiness behind the man's eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was old. The creases were deep. He unfolded it carefully. It was a letter, handwritten. The ink was faded. He did not read it. He just looked at it. Then he folded it again and put it back. He turned and walked toward the exit, slowly, quietly. As he passed through the lobby, the security guard from before was still at his post. He glanced at Garrett, but this time he did not stop him. Garrett pushed through the glass doors. The sunlight hit his face. He squinted. The parking lot was full. Families were walking toward the entrance, smiling, talking. Garrett moved between them like a shadow. He reached an old truck, faded blue paint, rust on the bumper. He opened the door and climbed inside. The seat creaked. He sat there for a moment, his hands on the steering wheel. He did not start the engine. He looked at the museum one more time. Then he looked down at his hands again, the scars, the bent finger. He closed his eyes. Somewhere in his mind there was a sound, a helicopter, voices on a radio, sand in his mouth, the smell of burning fuel. He opened his eyes, started the engine, and drove away. No one watched him leave. The truck rattled as it moved through the streets. Garrett drove with both hands on the wheel. His eyes stayed on the road. He did not turn on the radio. He passed a park. Children were playing. A man was grilling. The smell of charcoal drifted through the open window. Garrett's jaw tightened. He kept driving. 20 minutes later, he pulled into a neighborhood. The houses were small, neat lawns, American flags on porches. He parked in front of a pale yellow house at the end of the block. The paint was peeling near the roof. The driveway had cracks. He sat in the truck for a moment, then he got out. The front door opened before he reached it. A woman stood there. She was in her 70s. Gray hair pulled back, soft eyes. She smiled when she saw him. "You're late," she said. Traffic, Garrett said. She stepped aside. He walked in. The house smelled like coffee and old books. The walls were covered with photographs, family pictures, grandchildren, a wedding photo from decades ago. There was one photo that did not match the others. It hung in the hallway, a young man in uniform, dressed blues. His smile was wide, his eyes were bright. Below the frame, a folded flag sat on a small shelf. Garrett stopped in front of it. He always did. The woman came up beside him. She did not say anything, she just stood there. After a moment, she touched his arm gently. "He would have been proud of you," she said. Garrett's throat moved. He nodded once, but he did not speak. They walked into the kitchen. She poured him coffee. He sat at the table. The chair creaked under his weight. She sat across from him. "How was the museum?" she asked. "Crowded. Did you see it?" He knew what she meant. He nodded. "And?" He shrugged. "It's just a picture." She studied his face. "James, you don't have to carry this alone." His name was James. Garrett was what they called him, what everyone called him, but she used his real name. She always had. "I'm not carrying anything," he said. She did not believe him, but she did not push. She never did. She just sipped her coffee and looked out the window. They sat in silence for a while. It was comfortable, easy. She had known him for 40 years. She was his brother's widow. His brother had died in a training accident in 1989. Garrett had promised to look after her. He had kept that promise. "There's a man coming by later," she said. "A writer. He's doing a book about veterans." Garrett looked at her. "You didn't." "I didn't give him your name," she said quickly. "I just said I knew someone who served. He asked if he could meet you. I told him I'd ask." Garrett set his cup down. "No. James. No." She sighed. "People should know what you did, what all of you did." "They don't need to know." "Why not?" He looked at her. His eyes were hard. "Because it doesn't matter." "It matters to me." He stood up. "I need to go." "James, wait." But he was already walking toward the door. She followed him. Her voice was softer now. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have agreed to it without asking you first." He stopped. His hand was on the doorknob. He did not turn around. "It's fine," he said. "Will you come back for dinner?" "Maybe." He opened the door and left. She stood in the doorway and watched him drive away. Garrett went home. His house was 15 miles outside of town, a small ranch on 3 acres, no neighbors, just trees and silence, the kind of place where you could hear the wind. Inside, the house was clean but bare. A couch, a table, a single chair, no photographs on the walls, no decorations. The only personal item was a wooden box on the fireplace mantel. It was locked. Garrett made himself a sandwich. He ate standing at the counter, then he went outside. Behind the house was a workshop. He had built it himself. Inside were tools, a workbench, half-finished projects. He was making a chair, slow work, careful work. He picked up a piece of sandpaper and started smoothing the wood. His hands moved without thinking. The rhythm was steady, calming. He lost track of time. The sun was setting when he heard a car. He stopped, set down the sandpaper, walked to the window. A sedan was coming up the driveway. It stopped near the house. A man got out, mid-40s, glasses, khaki pants, a notebook in his hand. Garrett's jaw tightened. He walked out of the workshop. The man saw him and smiled. "Mr. Garrett." Garrett did not answer. He just stood there. The man stepped forward. "My name is Paul Tenner. I'm a writer. I think your sister-in-law mentioned I might stop by." "She's not my sister-in-law," Garrett said, "and I told her no." Paul nodded. "I understand, I really do, but I promise I'm not here to waste your time. I just want to talk, 5 minutes, that's all." "No." Paul hesitated, then he said, "I spoke to a man today, a colonel. He was at the museum. He said he met someone named Garrett, said it was one of the most significant moments of his career." He paused. "Was that you?" Garrett did not move. Paul continued. "He wouldn't tell me much, said it wasn't his story to tell, but he said men like you are the reason we're still here." That's a direct quote. Garrett's eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't have come here." "I know, I'm sorry." Paul looked down at his notebook. Then back at Garrett. "Look, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I'm writing about sacrifice, about the men who did things no one will ever know about, the ones who didn't get parades, who didn't get medals, who just disappeared into the background." Good, Garrett said, that's where they should be. Paul frowned, why? Because that was the job. Paul studied him, you really believe that? Garrett did not answer. Paul took a breath, can I ask you one question, just one, then I'll leave. Garrett waited. Do you ever regret it? The question hung in the air. Garrett's face did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes, something deep. He looked past Paul at the trees, at the fading light. Every day, he said quietly. Paul blinked, then why not talk about it, why not let people understand what it cost? Garrett looked at him, because talking won't change it. Paul opened his mouth, then closed it. He nodded slowly. Okay. He stepped back toward his car, then he stopped. For what it's worth, thank you. Garrett did not respond. Paul got in his car and drove away. Garrett stood there until the sound of the engine faded. Then he turned and walked back to the workshop. But he did not pick up the sandpaper. He just sat on the stool, his hands resting on his knees. The box on the mantel inside the house contained 3 things: a medal he had never worn, a photograph of 12 men standing in front of a helicopter, and a list of names. Some were crossed out, most were. Garrett had not opened that box in 5 years. He sat in the workshop until it was dark, then he went inside. He did not turn on the lights, he just sat in the chair by the window and looked out at nothing. The phone rang, he did not answer it. It rang again an hour later, still he did not move. At midnight he finally stood, he walked to the mantel, he looked at the box, his hand reached out, stopped, then he turned and went to bed. The next morning Garrett drove into town. He needed supplies, nails, wood glue, sandpaper. He parked in front of the hardware store and went inside. The man behind the counter nodded at him. Morning, Garrett. Morning. Garrett gathered what he needed. He paid in cash. As he was leaving, he heard voices near the entrance. 2 men were talking. One of them was wearing a veteran's hat. The other was younger. They were arguing. I'm telling you, it's not the same anymore, the older man said. These kids today don't understand what service means. The younger man shook his head. That's not fair, people serve in different ways now. It's not about fairness, it's about reality. Garrett walked past them. He did not look at either one, but the older man noticed him. He stepped forward. Hey, you served, didn't you? Garrett stopped. He turned slowly. Yeah, he said. Tell him, the older man said, pointing at the younger one. Tell him it's not the same. Garrett looked at both of them, then he said, it's never the same. The older man frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means every generation thinks theirs was harder, Garrett said, and every generation is wrong. The younger man smirked. The older man looked offended. You don't know what you're talking about, the older man said. Garrett's expression did not change. Maybe not. He walked out, got in his truck, drove away. On the way home he passed the cemetery. He slowed down, then he pulled in. He had not planned to stop, but his hands turned the wheel anyway. He parked near the back, got out, walked between the rows of headstones. He knew where he was going. He had been here before, many times. The stone was simple, just a name, a rank, 2 dates. SGT Michael J. Garrett, 1964-1989. Garrett stood in front of it, his hands in his pockets. The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere a bird called out. I saw your picture again, Garrett said quietly, at the museum. He paused, like he was waiting for an answer. They still don't know, he continued, about the operation, about what we did. He looked down. Maybe that's better. The wind picked up. Garrett's jacket flapped. He did not move. I'm getting old, he said, tired, he swallowed, but I'm still here like I promised. He stood there for another minute, then he nodded once, turned, and walked back to his truck. When he got home, there was a car parked in his driveway. It was not Paul's, this one was different, government plates. Garrett's eyes narrowed. He parked behind it, got out slowly. A man stepped out of the car. He was in his 50s, suit and tie, clean-shaven. He had the look of someone who worked behind a desk but had once worked in the field. Mr. Garrett, the man said, my name is David Marsh. I'm with the Department of Defense. Garrett did not say anything. Marsh held up his hands. I'm not here to cause trouble, I just need a few minutes of your time. For what? There's a ceremony, Marsh said. In Washington, next month, they're honoring several classified operations that have been recently declassified. Your name came up. Garrett's face hardened. No. Sir, with respect, this isn't optional. You're being formally recognized. I don't want to be recognized. Marsh sighed. I understand, I really do, but this is bigger than you. There are families who lost people in those operations. They deserve to know their loved ones didn't die for nothing. Garrett's voice dropped. They didn't. Then help us show them that. Garrett stared at him. Marsh did not look away. You'll receive the Distinguished Service Cross, Marsh said, posthumously awarded to 3 of your team members and presented to you for actions in 1991 and 2003. Garrett's chest tightened. He looked away. I don't want it, he said. It's not about what you want, Marsh said. It's about what's right. Garrett closed his eyes, his hands curled into fists. When he opened his eyes again, they were wet. I can't, he said. Marsh's voice softened. Why not? Because I didn't save them. The words came out broken, raw. Marsh went quiet. He looked at Garrett with something close to understanding. No one could have, Marsh said gently, you know that. Garrett shook his head. He turned away, walked toward his house. Marsh called after him, the ceremony is June 14th, I'll send you the details. Garrett did not respond. He went inside, closed the door, leaned against it. His breathing was uneven. He walked to the mantel, looked at the box, then he opened it. Inside, the metal gleamed. The photograph stared back at him, 12 faces, young, strong, confident. He picked up the list, read the names. His finger traced each one. He stopped at the last 3 names. They were crossed out in red ink. He sat down on the floor, his back against the wall, the list in his hands. And for the first time in years, James Garrett wept.